This is Backstage Bay Area, your all-access pass to the local music scene.
Today, we have a fascinating guest joining us, Lana Del Rabies, the dark electronic and genre-bridging project of Phoenix-based musician, producer, and multimedia artist Sam Owen. With her roots in experimental music, Lana has captivated audiences with her intense and immersive soundscapes, blending industrial, gothic noise, experimental metal, and more. Her current album, STREGA BEATA, has received critical acclaim for exploring grief, humanity's destructive impulses, and the cyclical nature of trauma. Known for her raw and powerful live performances, Lana Del Rabies is not just an artist, but a force to be reckoned with. Host Steve Roby will join us soon, but first, let's begin today's show with the song Hallowed is the Earth by Lana Del Rabies.
This is Backstage Bay Area, and I'm Steve Roby. We just heard Hallowed is the Earth by Lana Del Rabies, an industrial electronic music project developed by multimedia artist Sam Ann. Sam is my guest today. Hey, Sam, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Great. Sam, your music is deeply experimental with roots in dark genres like industrial, gothic noise, and metal. Can you tell us about the origins of Lana Del Rabies and how the project has evolved over the years?
For me, it's hard for me to place myself in any sort of particular genre or music subculture or scene. I feel like I've got connections to a lot of different areas of underground music, of even more mainstream music. So for me, the origins of this project were really me I was making stuff for myself with resources that I had in front of me. Music was something I was always passionate about, and I had always wanted to make music, but I came from Tucson, Arizona at a certain time and place. My life was a specific way, and so I only had so many resources to make the things I wanted to make. I started out doing more visual art because that was an easier way to be creative with the resources that I had. I did mixed media art, collages, and then I got into photography, which then got me into video editing, which then got me into learning how to edit audio. And I've been a fan of a lot of different kinds of heavy music for a long time. And I started making music through sampling and distortion and trying to emulate sounds of a lot of the music I really loved at the time without really knowing how to do it with instruments. And I also found myself leaning towards sampling pop artists who I felt like had something more to their music than I think was on the surface. So somebody who I gravitated towards a lot at the time was Lana Del Rey. And something about her as an artist I really like is that she has this honesty about her that I think a lot of people don't give her credit for. I think she's honest about she expresses things about herself that I think aren't she's not trying to be this perfect woman, and she's not trying to be a perfect pop star, or the way she expresses her experiences with relationships or life or just situations she's gotten herself into. I think it's something I have related to in my life, and I think it's something that I was processing through her music. And there was a heaviness to her music that I was like, there's something more here that I want to make something of my own out of. And that's where a lot of the origin of this particular project came from. There were other artists too that kind of had similar things. I also like older, kind of 60s pop music too. They seem to have kind of a similar vulnerability in that music that I find appealing. And so that was the origin of this, was making these kind of heavier, I guess, experimental noise drone tracks. And then it turned into me learning how to produce, being in other projects with other people and learning more about how to actually craft music. And that's what led to me doing what I do now. And I sometimes still touch on those kinds of themes, but I also have a lot more existential dread that I like to work through as well.
Sure. I'm just out of curiosity, what 60s music influenced you?
I like the Ronettes. I'm so sorry, my tour brain and dealing with all the fires. I'm a little in LA. I'm a little.
That's quite okay.
Think of the genre at the moment, but it's not doo-wop, but it's that style of kind of girl group pop music, Shangri-La's, stuff like that. I kind of I know there's a whole deep dive and all that stuff there, but I like that kind of stuff. I know there was a little bit of a revival with that, with Amy Winehouse and stuff in the late 2000s, but all that kind of sound was always interesting to me to also work with, to make heavy.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your latest album, Strega Beata, has been described as an apocalyptic myth exploring grief and humanity's destructive tendencies. What was the creative process like for this album, and how did your personal experiences shape its narrative?
Yeah. So that record started it shortly after Shadow World, and Shadow World for me was a very personal and intense record that was it was really about me dealing with myself and many layers of myself existentially and other things I won't get into. But yeah, and I think it was, I shortly quit drinking after that record, and I was in a space where I was tired of that feeling of navel gazing, of really of me just focusing on myself and my just me. I think I was a little bit tired of myself, and there's a lot going on in the world all the time. I know the late 2010s were a pretty intense time politically, and just seeing how that affected things on a micro level, whether it's like the music community or a macro level, where it's like the entire world, the context of the entire history of the world, and where things are going on the planet. I think my favorite song on that record is Apocalypse Fatigue. And the reason I love that song is because in writing that record pre-COVID, like, there was already this feeling of like, are we all just waiting for the world to end? And when the world ends, what does that even mean? Right? Because that also sort of like, it's a very view, I think, as humans, to be like, well, we're the most important thing on this planet. We're the only thing that ever defines this planet. What we are and what we do, like, obviously affect things in the world and on the planet, however you want to get into that. But I think these things, the idea of an apocalypse, the idea of the world ending, like, these things, it's not a one-time event. It's not like an action movie. It's not some cinematic narrative of like this big event happens and we're all trying to survive. I mean, there are people surviving apocalypses right now. There are people who survive like micro apocalypses all the time, and in other countries and day-to-day life in this country, like, and they're doing that today. They were doing that 200 years ago. I think it's this ever long cycle of like what an apocalypse is, or what the end of the world is, and how we define these things for ourselves. And like, even being in LA today, like all these fires, like I myself am facing, maybe I've lost my home, and like I've even been grappling with that. And it's like, all you can do is survive. All you can do is make that choice to survive. And I think Strega Beata was me grappling with what that means, and using mythological narratives that were self-invented, inspired by, I am a mythology nerd, so I am referencing certain things, but to me, wanted to create this narrative that was about like what it would mean to be this almost like a deity-like figure who's responsible for the state of the world, but can't actually like take responsibility for the world or take responsibility for an apocalypse. And just the anger and the emotions and the emotions you go through in order to get to a place of like making peace with the fact that the world is always ending. And it will always end. So hopefully that answers your question. But that's
it does. It does.
Me.
And just as a side note, I hope you're safe and stay safe. I'm going to play the song next, Apocalypse Fatigue. Is there one single message in the song you hope the listeners take away from it?
I just think that the idea of when you lose absolutely everything, and things you thought were going to, I think, maybe be a certain way in your experience in life, just become absolutely devastated and shattered, all you can do is survive.
Okay. Let's play it now. This is Lana Del Rabies with Apocalypse Fatigue. And you're listening to Backstage Bay Area. That's Apocalypse Fatigue from Lana Del Rabies. It's from the third album, Strega Beata. I'm Steve Roby, and Lana Del Rabies, a.k.a. Sam Ann, is my guest today. Sam, as a multimedia artist, how important is the visual aesthetic in your music? Can you share some insights into how you integrate visual elements into your albums and performances?
The visual art part of things for me is just it is just as important as the music. Like I was a visual artist for a while. I guess I still am, but to me, when I'm like really even a track, but especially a record, I'm very the process of the visuals at the same time. So for like Beata, like I remember having this idea of this like loose mythological narrative kind of about this idea of like a modern apocalypse that, also transcends time. What are the visuals for that? And I'm a person who likes to like collect a lot of imagery, whether it's like physically, even, just silly internet stuff where I'm like saving images in this way where it's like, if it like hits my gut a certain way, I'm like, okay, I'm going to save that one. I'm going to like go back to that later and then like look at it all at once and be like, what am I getting at here with this process? And so it's almost like the visual world is constructed through kind of a more, like, I don't like to overthink it too much.
Sure.
There's a lot of books and stuff I like to read. There are a lot of sources of inspiration that I draw from, but I like to get to that point where I'm like starting to write and I'm starting to collect visuals, and then I will also maybe like take photographs during the process or come up with ideas for shoots or things like that. And it all trickles into like big end product. It's like these little, it's like weaving a spider web or something is what I'm visualizing right now. It's like kind of these little threads all start to come together. I released some tracks last year that were pretty personal. So I was really like working with myself, like literally shooting myself on my phone and making things out of that. But I think for things where I feel like it's a little bigger in terms of like what I want to do with like a record, I love working with other artists.
Oh.
I mean, I think that's like something I live for. It literally keeps me going, is that idea of working with other creative people and just being able to like collaborate on ideas and not really have it be like, I'm the ringleader. I mean, like I want people to bring what they have to the table and to like improve and enhance the ideas I have, and for us to all like build something that's really something that it could not have been if it was just me. That is very important to me in the process of constructing like what a record is as like an experience versus just something you put out.
So your recent single, Queen of the Black Muses, which we're going to play next, feels like an evolution of your sound. What inspired this track, and how does it connect to your themes of empowerment, mythology, and darkness?
That one's interesting. I had an interesting year last year. I was going through, I think, a lot of things, I guess I'll just say existentially with myself. During COVID, I had put myself on a path of a certain lifestyle where I was a little bit less, I think my expectations of like art and what I do with this project and things were a bit more like, I wasn't thinking there was going to be much hope for, I guess, doing art and music in the future of the world. I was feeling like, you know what, maybe Strega Beata will be the last thing I do. I was in an interesting place with it. And then I had some personal things happen last year that put me mentally in a space of like needing to reckon with the idea that I maybe wanted more, and maybe that more was more of an existential concept of, I guess, to give this better context. So that song is inspired by the myth of Hades and Persephone, which when I was exploring that myth, someone smarter than me can quote this better.
It's okay.
But there are certain translations of that myth, and I think the most commonly known aspect of those two deities is the story of Persephone is the daughter of Demeter. She's a demigoddess. Her rank in terms of the pantheon of gods is pretty low. She has a pretty low level role in terms of her rank with Demeter. The most commonly known narrative is that Hades, god of the underworld, sees her, falls in love with her, covets her, kidnaps her. There's a rape narrative there, and she's a very almost victimized character, and like she is just this prop in Demeter coming and rescuing her, and then no, Hades wants her, and the allegory of eating the pomegranate. He tricks her into eating these pomegranate seeds that keep her in the underworld half the year. So we have the spring and the winter because Demeter is, Persephone is half in the underworld and half in our world. But translations aren't really clear if that really is the narrative, if that really is like she was kidnapped and raped. And that's from what I was looking into anyway.
Okay.
That's not necessarily like that is what the translation is. And so that there are other ideas of that narrative being what if she wanted to go to the underworld? What if she wanted to eat the pomegranate seeds? And pomegranates have a lot of symbolism too. But what if she wanted to like take this risk to explore darkness, to step into something really uncomfortable, and to like maybe build herself up more in this way of like becoming more real and becoming more. I'm very interested in the idea of exploring darkness psychologically, even psychically, I guess is a word you could use, and how that can build you and give you more meaning in life and kind of help you understand more about who you are. So that's all to say that song is exploring that. Yeah.
Thanks for the backstory of the song.
Yeah.
Well, let's listen to it now. This is Queen of the Black Muses, and we'll come back and talk some more right after this song. This is Lana Del Rabies on Backstage Bay Area. You're listening to Backstage Bay Area. I'm Steve Roby. You just heard Lana Del Rabies doing Queen of the Black Muses. Sam Ann is my guest today. Sam, with STREGA BEATA receiving critical acclaim and your music resonating with audiences worldwide, where do you see the Lana Del Rabies project heading next? Are there any new directions or collaborations, as you mentioned, you're exploring this year?
I'm currently on tour now with God Is War. We're doing a West Coast run. And then after that, my hope is to a record that really interested in more collaboration and like really building a more dense, heavier sound. I don't necessarily want to say metal, but I've been wanting to explore a more built out, fuller sound other than just like electronics. I've actually been like working with a drummer on some of my live sets through the past year, just because I'm really interested in having the sound just continue to get bigger and having it be something that is just like less about me specifically. I mean, like I will continue this project and I am the one making the records and stuff, but I like the idea of performing and creating something where it just feels denser, it feels bigger than myself, because ultimately I think I like my work more when it does feel like more gritty and layered and not just about me.
Yeah.
So my hope is to finish the record and really like flesh out some of these ideas I've been sketching over the last year and really just like purge some more of, I think, these ideas of existentialism and also even on a micro level, like things with interpersonal relationships and how that weaves into this bigger narrative, and then to just get it out and to really also have some really dynamic like visuals with it too. Videos are always a big part of what I do, but I'm always like, yeah, that could have been more. Not that I don't like really love and appreciate all the stuff that like I've worked on people with, but like I just have these visions of things where I'm like, this could like be pushed. Like this could really like be pushed to some new places that like could really, I don't know, I don't want to say provocative, but just I like to work with ideas that back to the idea of like darkness pushing you into places that are actually revelatory. And that's something I'm interested in with the next record. And I also just want to continue to tour. Like the fact that I've been able to tour more the last year and a half, it's like all I've wanted to do for the last few years, and it's finally able to happen. So yeah, just to continue to tour, to continue to go to places I've wanted to go forever, and really just like play and just really be raw and real with people and like engage with audiences in that way.
Yeah. When can we look forward to the next album?
My aim is sometime by early 2026.
Okay.
It could be earlier, but that's my aim at this point.
Will you have any singles coming out this year?
I imagine if I will probably, if there's a track or something I want to make, that's how I approached it last year. I'm not too precious with things. So like I will work on this record and the vision I have for it. But if there's a track that just wants to just come out, like I'll do it and I'll put it out there if it doesn't feel like it's the record. So it's entirely possible. So I tell people, so it could happen. I could feel like this itch to just like get something out and make something. Like those two of the music videos, all the music videos I did last year, I just shot on my phone in like 10 minutes and just spent a lot of time editing. So if that happens again, maybe it'll happen.
Okay, stay tuned.
Yeah.
You've got a show coming up on Sunday, January 12th at Eli's Mile High Club. Can you tell us what the audience can look forward to at this show?
Every show's different. I don't even always do the same set every night. I've built out my sets now so that I can actually like be a bit more intuitive with like, okay, I think these tracks are what's going to make sense tonight. So I like to keep it open, but I mean, for me, consistently, like I like to confront the audience. I like to put myself in a bit of like I don't know, I guess transcendental is the best word for it, state where I'm in a lot of places at once. So I'm there physically with the audience, but then I'm also in a different place with myself and the music and what that feels like for me personally. So it's this kind of push and pull of like, I'm doing this for myself, I'm doing this for you. And I kind of like that tension of submitting to the audience, but then also confronting them, but then also being in a space where like, I'm doing this for myself, which is all to say that it's pretty loud and raw, and I perform. Performance is the focus of what I do. So I will be getting out in the crowd. I will be, if there's stuff to climb on, I will climb on it. If there is moments where it needs to be quieter, that's what we'll do. For me, like the space itself is like, the space is what kind of draws whatever needs to come out of me. So yeah.
Okay, and let me remind our listeners, Lana Del Rabies will perform at Eli's Mile High Club in Oakland on Sunday, January 12th. Showtime is 6 p.m., and you can find tickets and more information on their website, elismilehighclub.com. And be sure to stop by lanadelrabies.com for the latest music and tour info. Sam, thank you so much for your time today and joining me and stopping by the show.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Steve Roby. We'll return in a moment with more Backstage Bay Area.
Hey musicians, would you like to be a guest on Backstage Bay Area? Just email the host and let him know when you'll be playing in the Bay Area. The address is backstage.sfbay@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning into the Backstage Bay Area podcast. Don't forget to visit us online at backstagebayarea.com for more insights and stories. Be sure to join us next time for more engaging conversations with local talent and touring musicians. Until then, keep the music alive, and we'll see you backstage.